Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me just say that we get it. Personal development can be hard, but you don't have to do it alone. Project Endure has been on a mission to create a supportive and inspiring community of people, all striving to be better together. Head down to the link in the show notes and join the Hard Things Club so that we can do hard things together. And if you're already a member, invite a friend and spread the love. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 57. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and we have a very, very special guest from across the pond near London, Alex Crockford. Alex, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Joe. Thank you so much for having me. When you got in touch, I couldn't help but say yes, because you just look like a guy that I wanted to have a chat with, first and foremost, whether it was being recorded or not. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I wanted to give you some context because I don't think you even know how I came across your page, but essentially I have a client here in Philadelphia. I do a lot of physical therapy, performance work locally. And one of my clients, Frank, he's brought you up a couple times now, and he continued to tell me, you got to reach out to Alex, And I looked at your page once or twice and I was like, wow, it'd be great to talk to this guy, but he's got such a huge following. It's probably not even worth the shot. After enough times of Frank pushing me to, I reached out and here we are. And Frank has been following you for a while, and I can see why he is so excited for me to have this conversation with you. So with that being said, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and give a little context about who you are?
Wow, where to begin? Well, first of all, thank you so much for getting in touch. And also thank you, Frank. I'm sure you're listening. So thanks for following me, Frank, and letting you know about who I am. Wow. So yeah, I am the creator of Crockford app. I'm a fitness trainer, fitness model, personal trainer. And I have a real purpose and passion in this life to help people get fitter and healthier and really overall increase their overall wellness and happiness. And in the process of me pushing myself and reaching my highest potential, my aim is to help and inspire others to reach their fullest potential. And really health and fitness is just, I see now, a gateway into that aspect of their life. And if you would have asked me that 5 or 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't have had that context or overall awareness, but now I'm starting to see what my highest potential and purpose is.
When did your fitness journey start? Your individual fitness journey, that is.
I was always into sports, fitness. I was always playing football. I had a tennis racket in my hand, or playing football and basketball was my team sports when I was young, and what I did in clubs, and I absolutely loved it, and it was always the most exciting part about my life, and I learned so much being in those team sports when I was young, and always excelled. I got to the point where I had to let one of them go, and then I let football go, which is soccer, and and had to push basketball. And I really did well at basketball. I was captain of a team, and I really loved it. In fact, I have dreams about it now because I know that I want some more playtime in my life rather than just fitness itself. So then I went into college, and I really wanted to get better at these sports. And I also saw magazine covers and fitness models, and I thought, I'm a bit interested in the gym. So that opened up the opportunity for me to start lifting weights and going to a gym, probably at around 16, 17 years old. And I fell in love with weight training and doing standard bodybuilding stuff. And then, that continued into university time with very little knowledge about nutrition or lifestyle. Living as a student, I was just lifting and eating crap. Um, and then when I became a personal trainer after university, I obviously continued this never-ending learning journey about fitness and my body and my health. So it's been a natural progression from my career and personal sports and fitness.
Now, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I have to address your accent. It's wonderful, man. I could listen to you talk all day, so the next 60 minutes is going to be very fun for me. But what I will say is, our fitness journeys, where they started and why they started, share a lot of similarities. I also was inspired by seeing magazine covers, people online. Bodybuilding.com was kind of the place when I was in middle school, and I would go to the gym and 13, 14, 15 years old and have no idea what I was doing, but I knew I loved it. And
Yeah.
I've learned along the way. And over the past 10, 15 years, I've learned so much and I'll continue to learn as long as I'm in this space. But for you, when you became a personal trainer, was that a full-time thing for you from the beginning?
Yes. When I jumped into it, it was straight into full time. I mean, whilst I was at university, which was a fitness and personal training degree, I was already 1 foot into the gym space because after you gained like the first qualifications and needed the experience, I was already doing the gym floor hours and inductions and things like that and gaining experience on a part-time basis. I think that hustle and that work ethic was in me from the day one. You'll realize that I never stagnate or wait. My peers at university spent Saturday and Sunday hungover and drunk. I was back in my home area in the gym, already keen to be a PT, but didn't have the qualifications. So that when I did finish my degree, I was straight into the gym, working full time, and then working hard to build up my clientele.
Yeah, that hustle is something that I don't know if you can exist in this space for a long period of time without. I think you need that hustle. And so one question that Frank actually wanted me to ask you, and we'll talk about this before we dive into the heart of the conversation, is just how have you scaled what you do? Because you're on YouTube, Instagram, I'm sure other social media platforms, you have your own app. I'm sure you're doing in-person work, you're doing modeling, you do so many different things. How have you scaled all of that? And what did that look like, from the start until right now?
Hmm. I think the easiest answer is the fact that I haven't stopped, and now there's quite a few years between me starting and where I am. And from those early days, I saw, and even now, I see people switching up and changing what they're doing, quitting, failing, moving on to the next before they're gaining any momentum. But I knew right from the very beginning with CrockFit, my brand, or with social media, that I just stuck at it and never stopped. And we do need to take days off and we do need to take time away. But I struggle to do that because it's really so important for me. And I'm so motivated every day. So I think most of all, my scaling has happened from the work ethic, the focus, and the consistency, the boring stuff that people don't want to hear, and the years and the time. But on a more kind of uh, emotional level, is probably more about the fact that I've stayed true, authentic, and empathetic to who I'm talking to, and with the genuine spark of wanting to help the person like they're the one person in front of me, even though they might know, or I know that it might be 100 or 1,000 people that I'm trying to help. And what I saw as a personal trainer, like the transition from PT to online business is a tricky one. But what I saw in the market at the time was like PT, top tier level premium thing, one to one with people, and then online plans, which was buy something very cheap, get a very low service in regards to a one-to-one nature and support and being able to contact the person that's written it and things like that. And I saw this gap where I wanted to sell online plans, reach more people than this one-to-one, but give them the same level of service as a personal trainer.
Mm.
And right from the very beginning, people would say that's not scalable, that's not possible. But um, I think honestly, my business success is reasonably slow because of how long it's taken me, and I might have scaled quicker if I hadn't have cared so much about that. But I think I am where I am now at the level that I am, because I maintained that importance of um, personality, personal approach, that people feel heard and supported, even though the community is building. And I don't know the answers to how I'm going to scale it further. This is some of the actual entrepreneurial business conversations that I'm having behind the scenes at the moment to get to the next level.
There are a few things there that I'd love to dig further into. One is there's a lot of power in just sticking around and being persistent, and consistent effort compounds over time. And it's almost like if there's a woodpecker on a tree and it pecked the tree 3 times and it said, I'm not getting anywhere, and it just gave up, right? Maybe it just needed a couple more. Maybe it needed to stay there for 10 more minutes, maybe 10 more months, maybe 10 more years. But eventually, if you believe in what you're doing and you stick down that path, the river cuts through rock, not because of its power, but because of its persistence. So that's one. Two is just a genuine question. You must get so many messages, right? And one of the things that I talked about with Frank, and he was so impressed with, was he said, Alex has such a large following, and yet he would respond to questions, right? He would make sure that he had that personal touch. And I know from my much smaller following that it can be draining to constantly stay on top of those messages to make sure that you're giving people the time and attention and love that they deserve. How do you manage that? And how do you make sure that your cup is full outside of pouring into people so much?
Yeah, it's certainly something that needs to be managed. And there have been various times in my life where I feel overwhelmed and I feel like social media as a whole can get on top of me. So it is certainly something that needs to be managed and time apart. Over the years, I've found ways to approach it to give me the best mental space so that I do have my cup full so that I can support others. And that is just the boundaries of my own time and space and priorities. I think early days when my following was growing, I would be obsessive about, oh, I must empty my DMs and get back to everybody right now in this next 10 minutes because they've messaged me. And as the years have gone on, I've realized, not just in DMs, but in emails and my to-do list and everything, is that nothing gets completed. And as soon as you allow that, my my mental health and space feels a lot better, that I'm not going to get anything completed like that. It's just an ongoing process of choosing your priorities so that you keep pushing the business and your life and your fitness forwards. So I think when it comes to DMs and messages, I dive in knowing that I've got the next hour to spend there. And if there's somebody that's asking a genuine question or needing support, or if they're, especially if they're an app user or a customer of mine, then it's a top priority. And to probably push aside the non important or silly or stupid questions or disrespectful comments or things like that. So a level of priority, knowing that I don't respond to everybody. I respond to who I should respond to.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. I guess the third thing that I just wanted to touch on and pick your brain about is the concept of delaying gratification. And so, I perused your YouTube channel and you've got a lot of great content up there. And I feel like YouTube is one of those things that you have to stick with to build momentum. When you started
Mm.
YouTube in the beginning, was it something that you knew you were going to do for a long time? And what did that look like in terms of building momentum on YouTube, and what opportunities have come out of that platform?
Mm. Um, I love talking about delayed gratification because it's one thing in this day and age that so many people are not willing to do, because we all want the results right now, right here, tomorrow. and so much success in, and that's why I love fitness as a gateway into success in life overall, is that the results come from putting in the work consistently. And YouTube, especially, I did not take it seriously at the beginning. It was a thing that I did some random posts or workouts on, because Instagram was my focus for so long at the beginning. Um, and probably only when I'd just post some random things on there. But when I realized that, wait a minute, there's some decent amount of views here, and things have been ticking over and building up, I said for quite a long time that I should really prioritize YouTube. And how I saw the age of social media developing, I realized that YouTube had this long term benefit too. It works like a search engine, gives people like, I always found the value in something that's long form, as all other social medias were reducing the attention span from like a 60-second video to a 30 to a 15 to like, now you got 3 seconds to get their attention before they scroll away. And I'm in the game, I'm there, I'm playing, but it makes me more motivated about YouTube, because if you're scrolling through YouTube, I sense that you're there ready to spend 10 minutes, 20 minutes to either do a workout or listen to some advice or knowledge. And the same as a podcast, what you're doing here, people have clicked on, ready to listen or watch, because they're ready for some real value. So I always knew that I wanted to spend some more time on YouTube. And then when it came to business and or financials, I knew that there was a better chance in the long run with YouTube, because videos that were posted 3 years ago are still racking up lots of views. So if there's ad revenue possibilities there, that's great for me. And if it works as a funnel to help people find me and my service, my app, then it's something that's working for me in the back end. So I saw that as a great opportunity as well. Not to mention that it's a fantastic place to give free support and service and value for people, whether they're going to sign up or not. It's free, it's out there, and really aligns with my purpose and passion to help people.
Yeah, I think in the world we live in today, anything that anybody wants to find is out there, right? You can find it. And so why charge for information that somebody can find somewhere else? You might as well provide the value. And if someone sees you as a resource and wants to get to know you and work with you, then great. And if not, then you help somebody. And I think that's a great way to look at it. Now,
Yeah.
you and I both share a love for fitness for similar reasons. I also see kind of this beautiful parallel to life where you have to struggle to find strength. Like in the gym, on the road, if you're lifting, you're running, you're doing something else physical, you have to push the limits a little bit, and then you have to back off and let your body recover, and it adapts and you're better for it. In life, I view the same thing as true, right? We have to do hard things. We have to make ourselves uncomfortable in order to grow. However, sometimes the hard things, we don't get to choose them. They choose us. So the question for you, Alex, is what's the hardest thing in life that you've ever had to handle? So a circumstance that you didn't necessarily get to choose, but that you had to deal with yourself.
Hmm. And it can be physical or emotional or anything.
Yep.
um, yeah. I think we might talk more about physical stuff after this one. So I'm going to go for a more emotional circumstance that I had to deal with, and may resonate with people. 2 months ago, I got back from living in Spain for a year, and before going to Spain, we had two cats, and one of them was ill, and I had this deep fear that a year is a long time, and I really hope she makes it on the other side. And we were halfway through, and it came very evident that all of a sudden she was getting very ill, and to deal with her death, your beloved pet that you love so much, whilst you're not there to support her, dying very quickly in a vet without us around, having to think about the guilt that and all of these circumstances of should we have gone to Spain for our own benefit and left them without us, still with a different family member, of course. And this circumstance is probably one of the hardest things I've had to go through. I'm grateful that I haven't actually lost many family members, so that's why I'm thinking about a pet. But I think death is always going to be one of the most difficult things that we go through when we lose somebody close to us, an animal or a human, and having to go through that, you're faced with a situation of having to make really difficult decisions. Right there and then, we actually were given the decision of, do you want us to try and keep her alive so you can fly home? And that would have been a real selfish decision of that's more for us. That's not for her. That's for us. So that was a tough decision to say let go over the phone and things like this. And then not only that, but the process in which you deal with the healing as well. I think when we're dealt with an emotional thing to recover from, we either go down two paths, and that is brush it under the carpet and don't ever think about it again,
Hmm.
or confront, feel, and go through the natural emotions that we as humans have to go through. And I think so many of us, this could go down a deeper, bigger conversation when it comes to trauma or things that you've gone through in your life as a child that you need to heal. Because when you block that energy and you block those emotions, they're there, and you have to feel them out with your emotions to let them go. So I had this awareness at the time and knew that I had to feel and cry and go through the process of mourning.
Mm.
So that's probably the toughest thing that I've had to go through recently that I was faced with.
I appreciate you sharing that, and I'm sorry for your loss. You know, whether it's a loved one or a pet that we love so much, it's not easy to lose anything that we care about. And I've heard it said that grief is just love persisting. It's love with nowhere to go.
Mm,
And I think you're absolutely right. You know, those emotions, the sadness, frustration, shame, guilt, whatever it is, any emotion that anybody could label as potentially negative, I do think those things are important to feel, to face, to address, because like you said, if we don't, they don't go away, right? You can run, but you can't hide. And at some point or another, that's going to catch up with you. And so what does the mourning process look like for you? And maybe for somebody who's listening, who has lost a loved one or a pet that they care so much about, what could that look like for them, do you think?
yeah, I think it all comes down to, like, if you are dealing with the guilt or the fear or the anger, it all does come down to a core foundational emotion of love. And if you go through those emotions and you go through them without judging yourself and without um, staying in a negative energy, but thinking about the love and the good energy of whoever you've lost, you ultimately come to a place of oneness with them. And if you have any spiritual understanding or foundation, you might be able to understand or feeling to the fact that they are still there around you, with you, and this brings a level of comfort and understanding that they're not lost, they're just in another place at the moment. And this brings back that level of love. So whenever I miss Pickle or anybody else that I've lost, you just feel like they're there, and it's a very cathartic feeling. Sometimes we block out these emotions because we're scared of, oh, I don't want to do this difficult work of feeling sad and crying and being angry or fearful or guilty. But when you go there and you feel the emotion and you just don't judge it, and you spend time with yourself, it's cathartic. You feel so much free. You've done some self healing when you go through that process.
Mm, that's very well said. And I'll share a quick story, but in the beginning of 2013, we lost my grandpa to cancer. And at his funeral, I very clearly remember looking at a penny on the ground. It was just there. And my grandpa's sister looked at me. She saw me look at the penny, and I kept walking. And she said, "Aren't you going to pick that up?" And I said, "No, it's just a penny." And she said, "Well, it's from your grandpa. It's from Pop Pop. That's what that means." So I picked it up. Over the next 3 months, I must have found $5 worth of pennies everywhere I went, right? And it was exactly what you said. It was that feeling of peace because you knew that that person you loved wasn't lost. They were just in a different place. And I think that's such a beautiful way to say that. So I appreciate you sharing that big time. Um,
Yeah.
Anything else that you have to add on that topic or thoughts there? I mean, obviously, you still have another cat, you still have people you love. Is there anything you would do differently now, being that you have the chance to love those people well and to love your pet well?
Um, I think the obvious answer that comes to my head here, and thankfully, because she was already ill for 2 years before that, and we took her through treatment and therapy, it gave us the opportunity to know that we have to enjoy every single moment, and that might be the tee up you were leading me
Mm.
for, but it's the everyday. It's being present with everybody that you're with, enjoying the present moment. Anybody that you still have with you here, you have to hug them and love them and talk to them like it's the last moments with them. And then every extra day is a lovely bonus, and you get to live another day again.
Mm. So, two things. One, I would say anybody listening to this podcast, either pause this right here and come back in a second, or keep listening and do this on your phone. But send a text message to a family member, a friend, somebody that you care about, and just let them know. Because one, you might not get the chance tomorrow, and that's a reality. It's a hard reality to think about, but you never know. And two, you might make that person's day. And then the flip side of that is that loss isn't just about other people, but sometimes it's about parts of our identity. And I'm actually thinking back to episode 7 of this podcast with Hannah Huxley, a phenomenal human being who was paralyzed from the waist down after a car accident a few years back. And she has such an optimistic, um, just infectious outlook on life. And she lost part of who she was, but she, instead of grieving that process forever, she did her grieving and she just embraces who she is right now. And I think in terms of fitness and physical abilities, that's obviously a big part of who you are, who I am. But I don't think it can be our entire identity, because if that's the case and that's taken away from us, then who are we? So I'm curious,
Mm.
when you think about your identity as a human being, do you have like component parts of, who is Alex, 10% fitness, 20% relationships? Like what does that look like for you?
Yeah, it's funny conversation because I've had similar thoughts recently actually about what if everything that I do and associate myself to on a personal brand level and an identity just collapses around me and is finished and over. Who am I? What do I do? And it's similar to what I was saying earlier about my greater awareness of my purpose and passion that I have now is growing bigger and beyond than just fitness itself. So I couldn't put it down to a percentage of a pie of the different things that I do, but I think if I was to lose everything and I am socially no one and I'm just Alex Crockford or even no name, um, I think who I am is how I make people feel and what energy and good vibes I bring to the world from an energy um, circumstance or an energy point of view in regards to my thoughts that I have, how I conduct myself, how I meet people, and how I make them feel. Do I uplift them? I could lose absolutely everything, but if I walk down the street tomorrow and go to a coffee shop and I interact with the person behind there who doesn't know who I am, I don't expect her to know who I am, but do I make her feel like I have uplifted her today, for example? That's who I see who I am. Um, and even if I meet no one, if I walk out into the woods or in the trees, I want to connect with nature and feel like I am part of this world and continue uplifting the vibration and the positivity.
Mm. I think a lot of times people think of wealth as how much money do you have? They think about it in terms of finance, but it's been said, and I'm paraphrasing, true wealth is who you would be if you lost everything. And, probably the greatest form of currency we have is how we can influence and impact and uplift other people. So that was extremely well said. To transition a little bit, so we talked about the hardest circumstance or one of the hardest circumstances you've had to handle. What is the hardest thing that you've ever done on purpose, and why have you chosen to do that thing?
Undoubtedly 24 hours of burpees.
Oh my goodness. All right, let's start here. How many did you do in 24 hours?
About 5,500 chest to floor with a hand release out here and then back in. And yeah, I decided to do it. I wasn't forced into doing this.
Now, the world record, I believe, and I don't know if there's a hand release involved, but for burpees, is it almost double that? I think it's pretty.
I, I think, yeah, I think so. But back then when I did it about 4 years ago or 5 years ago, um, I was probably obsessed with knowing the numbers and who was doing it and were they doing the cheating half burpees or were they doing the chest to floor burpee version. But now I'm a bit lost because I think it got really popular. I don't know if it was me that set a trend, probably not, but I think people just love doing burpee challenges. So I think the numbers started to increase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's talk about this on a practical level and then let's zoom out and talk about it on a philosophical level. But practically, what did that actually look like? What was your strategy going into those 24 hours, and did it play out how you thought it would play out?
Yeah, a good few months of training of just keeping up my general strength training and fitness whilst adding in like a weekly burpee session, which each week would increase in time, like a marathon training structure would be, where you keep up your running, you keep up your strength training, and then once per week you'd up your mileage. So I was doing that with burpees, but I think I probably, with my naivety and fitness wisdom at the time, I probably didn't listen to my body fully or fuel it perfectly. So a shoulder injury and a hip width thing, I kind of pushed those hours up when I wasn't really ready to do so, because when you've got a date in the diary, you have to work towards it. So I probably wasn't the best prepared as I could have and should have been. And then in the practical level of how to go about it was a classic kind of EMOM style. At the beginning of every minute, you do a certain number and then rest for the remainder of the minute. And that's how my training went as well. So 8 to 10 reps, which will take about 30 seconds, and then 30 seconds rest. And if you can do that for 55 minutes and take 5 minute break and then repeat it again 24 times, then you'll be all right. But it doesn't work out like that. But to be honest, if you look at the scorecard of the first 12 hours, it was quite impressive. But then, yeah, the endurance, we'll talk about endurance, won't we?
Mhm.
Um, with Mr. Project Endure. I think from 12 hours onwards was a steady decline of physicality and just hit every wall there could be
Did
on its way down.
How did the lack of sleep play into things? Was that a big factor for you?
It really, really did start to play a big factor. What time was it? I started at 1 or 2 p.m. So it was right when you get through to the late night, because that's kind of normal for us to push through to a late night. But when it started past 12 o'clock and it was 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 5, 6 a.m., it was really sleep deprivation really, really took its toll. And you go through these mini tenth winds of energy,
Mm.
but you can sense this lack of sleep with exhaustion really starting to play out. But it's funny because I think it really brings out this like really grounded, uh, raw part of who you are out. Sleep deprivation and exhaustion really strips away the layers above, and you'll get to the philosophical part, but that's kind of really why I wanted to do it. I wanted to go there and be like, who am I at this level of desperation? So people around me would say, you are sarcastic, you are funny, because I, at that stage, had like funny one-liners because I just didn't care about much going on, especially when I'd kind of let go of the number and the Guinness World Record and the care about that. I knew that I could either give up, oh, no record, I'll just stop now. People have turned up, I'm on Facebook Live, whatever. No, I then had difficult, more mental decisions to make of like, okay, this isn't for any number. This is about me doing 24 hours of burpees, and I'm not going to let myself fail. So now it's time to just have some fun in this worst experience of my life. And having that overriding awareness, so you're not there stuck in this situation, but to take yourself out of the physical body is what happened.
So, all right. So you get to that place, right? You're exhausted, you have this awareness. You probably want to stop, if not once, many, many times, but you choose to push forward. What are some of the things that you learned about yourself in that experience?
Oh, that we are capable of so much. The body is capable of so much. And I was not doing burpees very well. It was terrible technique. I was laying on the bed for 20 minutes to try and get some sleep and wasn't. And my physio friend and other person was really kind of giving me physical therapy and whatever. And yeah, I was doing 3 burpees a minute or something terrible. But I learned that I am still here moving forwards because of the strength of my mentality. And I just didn't think there was any limit to that. It just felt limitless. I really, really, really wanted to stop, and I wanted the 24 hours to come and finish as soon as possible. But I also thought, wow, I thought this thought that I'm having 12 hours ago, 12 hours, I thought this is hard. So how am I still here 12 hours later, still here? And that made me think, what else is possible? My body might not be able to go on for much longer, but my mind has managed to endure all of this pain. And it's down to me to decide to keep going. And that's just pure mental grit and strength that is like a muscle. It's like you've got to train that. And maybe it's not the same for everybody, but I do recommend people go through some hardships physically, go on like a week marine course, or set themselves some challenge that seems ridiculous, because you learn so much about who you are.
I think that when people set goals and those goals stay mental, between the ears, it's really hard because they're not tangible, right? And you could come up with all the excuses in the world. It might be hard to measure progress or lack of progress, but when you make things physical, there's a very real benchmark that you can see and feel and measure right in front of you. Did you take another step? Did you do another burpee? Did you make it to the allotted time? And I think there's so much value there. So let me ask you this: when you get to the end of that 24 hours, what's going through your mind? Are you thinking, I got to get to sleep? Are you thinking, I can do another hour? Are you thinking, man, I don't know why I did that? Like, what's going through your mind?
um, you can go on my YouTube. There's a playlist called there's 10 episodes in a playlist called My Burpee Challenge or something like that. If you go to episode 10, you can see some bits of live stream that I've edited in there and the moment that it ended. So you guys can go check that out if you want. I definitely was not considering let's do another hour. It definitely felt like the absolute end. And I was very, very grateful and happy for it to be over. And I was just really looking forward to getting home and starting my recovery and looking after my body. And I definitely thought I would never do this again. Because I guess people would think that, oh, you didn't get the number, let's repeat it and try to do it again. But my level of pushing, I don't think I needed to go back to that place again. Maybe one day in a different format or a different challenge, I can push myself again. But no, I mean, I think I even say it because of the level of sarcasm and funniness that I had about me, at that rawness. I was there laying on my back, and people were hugging me and saying "well done" or whatever, and I just said that was hard or something like that. Just like, that was hard. Not doing that again.
Well, I think there's a good lesson there, and it's something I'm curious if you agree with this, but I think goals are great. Outcomes, it's great to shoot for something, but goals just guide the process. They guide us along the way. And the process or the work, that's where we change. That's really the reward. The work is the reward, right? That's what we get out of it. And I'm curious if you feel the same way about fitness and about everything that you do in life, if the work is the reward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I often say something quite similar. I say progress over perfection because we could say perfection as the outcome, the weight lost or the reps done or the whatever as like the perfect tangible goal. Whereas it's the process of making the progress
Mm.
where you learn the most, where you make the results happen, and like you said, doing the work is where it's all about. Because if we do have an actual goal to make or a destination to reach, then what percentage of the journey are we there for a split second, for a 1% of the journey? So the 99% of the time is where you spend most of your time. So that's what it's all about. And that's where you make the biggest lessons. You grow so much as a person, you get all the results from. And you've got to have the most fun doing it as well, because that's where you spend most of the time.
Yeah. Now to tie a lot of this together, let's bring in the concept of endurance. And so obviously to keep going through 24 hours of burpees or through building a business or anything else in life that's challenging, you need to endure. So when you hear the word endurance, Alex, what does that mean to you?
Hmm. I could take it in a couple of different places because when you look at the 24-hour burpees, you'd like I had to endure the pain and the mental stress to get through that, knowing that I had to just go through the pain to get there.
Mm.
But that's because it's reasonably very short term. I know this ends in a day, in 24 hours, and then I can move on. So I know that my intensity of endurance can be at its peak because it's going to come to an end. But if we look at life, business, and overall fitness journey, I would see endurance as something a little bit different because I think there's got to be this longer term approach, say like let's keep it in fitness, like a marathon runner or an elite triathlete or a long distance runner or something. If they sprinted the whole way, then they wouldn't be able to endure it. So if you carry, they've got to find the pace in that long journey. Well, I mean, this could be the burpees as well, but I didn't do that very well. You've got to find a pace that you're able to maintain for a long period of time, that you can endure and learn when to rest but not to quit, so that you're able to be consistent over the long run. So whether that's in fitness, business, entrepreneurialism, I would say endurance is about finding your pace and staying consistent over a long period of time through the hardships, and learning that you might be able to take your foot off the gas sometimes, but that doesn't mean quit or stop.
Mm. Are you familiar with the children's story, The Tortoise and the Hare?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. You know, you hear all those things as kids and you kind of brush it off as it's just a story. And then as an adult, you think about it again, you're like, "Oh my goodness, there's so much wisdom there." But it's for people who are unfamiliar, it's this race. I believe it's been a while since I thought about this, but it's a race. There's a tortoise, there's a hare. The tortoise goes out slow because it's a tortoise, and the hare goes out real quick. But in the end, the tortoise wins because it was slow and steady and it didn't stop. And the hare, I think, takes a nap behind a tree and falls asleep for a long time. So, um,
This is it. Exactly. Yeah, it's the same thing as what I was saying. That it's that steady pace consistently over time.
yeah. So now to endure setbacks, hardships, obstacles, adversities, you need to have a driving force that's bigger than those things that'll keep you
Yeah.
going through those things. For you, do you have a driving force that you draw on when things get tough?
Yeah. I think there's quite a few, and I'm starting to become a bit more aware of it over time goes on, and start to analyze whether there's ego involved here, whether I'm motivated by financial gain, status, success, and these parts play an element. But beyond that, I feel like what really drives me when things get hard, or whether when I'm really inspired, is this two things: to support my family and people around me, to make them feel proud, to make sure they're comfortable in their life. I'm very motivated by, and that's still a key thing. And then secondly, and bigger and beyond that, is my overall impact on life, society, and humankind as a whole. And I don't know if it's a normal passion to have, and if people grow up knowing that they want to have a really big impact. But for me, I feel it. I feel this weird sense of responsibility. I don't know why, but I feel like, not that I found the keys to life or anything like that, but I feel like health, fitness, spirituality, mindfulness is what so much of what society needs right now, with so much that's going on in a negative world, and with depression, anxiety, and suicides, and obesity and everything. I feel like I have a lot that I can give. So that is a real driving force for me to be like, how can I share this? How can I get this out to the world, and really impact people in a positive way for the future of our lives?
Yeah. The thing I'd like to point out about both of those driving forces is that they're both bigger than you. And I think when people are doing things just because of ego, solely because of ego and for themselves, a lot of times they're going to run up against things that are just too hard, right? But when your driving force, when your purpose is bigger than you, there is that sense of responsibility. And, it can be heavy at times. And I think we've all felt that when we feel responsible for other people. But to just show up and to give your best, you never know who that's going to impact in a positive way and who needs that. So there's always somebody watching. And I just think that's a really important point for people to take away, is that the driving force that's going to help you endure life the best has to be bigger than just you. And you gave two great examples there.
Yeah, thank you. You're really good at breaking these things down and giving them context. Thank you.
Ah, thank you. We're on episode 57 here. So I've done this quite a few times. And but each time it's so cool because each conversation is different, yet through all of these conversations, there's this common thread where people are doing things and enduring hard things because they feel a sense of responsibility, that life is bigger than just them. And it's beautiful to get to hear all of these different conversations. And so thank you for this. Now, as we start to close things down, I've got a final question. And this one, to your point earlier of, treating your content and treating your business as if it's impacting one person right in front of you, having that personal touch. This podcast is being listened to by many people, yet at the same time, each individual is listening to this and it's finding them in a unique time and place in their life. So, as you answer this next question, imagine that you're speaking to one person. And the question is, if somebody's going through a hard time, if somebody is dealing with some darkness, some hardship, some adversity, and they're not sure what to do or where to go, and they're just looking for some kind of guidance or encouragement, and you get to be that person, what would you say to them?
Mm. A few things. I'd probably start with saying, um, to gain a foundation of allowance. First of all, just bring yourself back into this place of surrender, allowance. Realize that challenge is a part of the life that we're living in, and that challenge equals growth. So understand that life is working out for you, even though right now you might feel like it's against you. But this challenge you're facing is for you. So however difficult it feels, allow and surrender into it. And then following that, is having the greater perspective. Is this challenge in front of you a real big, key, massive thing, or can you gain some perspective over your overall happiness, or your life, or the big picture in some way? And sometimes that can really help, because it's so easy for us to get stuck in the weeds of something, and we really wind ourselves up about this thing. And then when we take a step back, we think, oh, actually, this isn't really that much of a big deal. And probably really realizing and not stressing about the things that you can't actually do yourself. Can you take control of this situation? Great, do it. If you can't and you don't have control over this situation, then there's no point having stress, anxiety, or worry over it. All you can do is do the things that you are able to do. Next would be to ground down. A sense of grounding through exercise, through being out in nature, through disconnecting to reconnect, meaning disconnecting from phones, disconnecting from technology, doing breathwork, meditation. Being in nature reconnects you to who you are, your soul, your source, your spirit, slowing down the mind, the thoughts, the busyness, because that automatically just pulls you away from the challenge or the worry and gives you that sense of higher perspective that I spoke about before. And finally, I think is attacking head on. Sometimes when we're faced with a challenge, we want to go around it, over it, under it, and avoid it. And sometimes there's challenges that just aren't worth it. When I'm faced with a bad DM from somebody that's not worth arguing, this isn't worth my argument. But generally, if it's a challenge that means a lot to you, once you've done the previous steps, it's to actually face the challenge head on, attack it with good energy, because often the process of doing that will create the growth. Solve the problem sooner, and often it's nowhere near as bad as you thought it might have been. And then you can move on to the next journey. And often, if you take it from a life or a spiritual point of view, we're faced with lessons, we're faced with patterns. Do you ever realize you're going through the same thing but with a different face in a different place? And that pattern will keep on repeating itself until you step up and do what you need to do. And I'm noticing these things in my life at the moment. And sometimes it might not feel the right time to step up and break this pattern. But one time you feel like now's the time for me to face this pattern that keeps reoccurring and learn the lesson that I need to learn here and have some personal growth. I think there's some big steps there.
Yeah, there was so much value there. And I appreciate you sharing all of that. And it's very obvious that you, while maybe don't have it all figured out, because none of us do, that you've thought quite a bit about everything that we've talked about: life, fitness, endurance, perspective, so on and so forth. And if people want to follow along, find more value from you, connect with you, reach out and just say, thank you for this conversation, where's the best place for people to do that?
Oh, wow. Lots of places. You can find me on all social medias if you want. My name is Alex Crockford on all of them. But if you want to send me an email, you can email me at alex@alexcrockford.com. You can join my Facebook community, which is more of an enclosed group called Crockfit Community, where there's lots of people in a safe place sharing their journey on their fitness journey using my app and workouts and things like that. But yeah, just DM me or email me. I would absolutely love to hear from you.
Alex, I appreciate it so much. And I do have one final question, completely off topic. You've been sipping on something over there. Are you drinking tea? Is that tea?
No, at the beginning, that was just a coffee. What time is it? It's 1 o'clock now. So that would probably trigger probably my last dose of caffeine for the day if I'm to be good. I haven't trained yet, so if I train soon, there might be a pre-workout, but it's got to be a strong 2 or 3 o'clock cutoff of caffeine.
Understood. Understood. Well, Alex, thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you for all that you do. I appreciate it so much, and I know everybody listening does too.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a fantastic podcast, so all the best to you, and thank you for doing what you do and sharing all of this. It was amazing talking with you.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, Go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Endure Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.